Nowadays, when the iPhone is so good, so you don't have to upgrade your phone every year, so you can have it for quite a few years actually before you need to upgrade. Then me personally think that waiting for the next version of the operating system is more important, because I think when Apple releases a new operating system version, this year it will be iOS 13, then I'm so excited over all the new features and all the features that makes the phone, the iPhone, new again. The phone feels actually new for every new iOS release. And this year with the iOS 13 version, Apple adds a lot of new interesting features. I think this is one of the biggest upgrades of the operating system since I bought my first iPhone actually. One of the big new features, maybe it's not so interesting for all, but it's the dark mode. Now you can choose to have dark mode on your operating system, so all apps that supports the dark mode gets real dark instead of white. And for me that have an iPhone XS Max with an OLED display, then you have a pure real black version of the operating system, and that actually saves battery life, because battery life on an OLED display, when the pixels are black they are off, and when pixels have another color they are on. So every pixel that is black doesn't drain the battery. So having a dark mode on the operating system will help with battery life actually. Another huge new feature in iOS 13 is external storage support. So now with iOS 13 you can connect external hard drives, external USB drives, USB thumb drives, SD cards and so on, and have all those external storage available in the Files app. And for example in File Browser Go that I use, you will have the possibility to use external storage, so you can get to your files a lot easier now with iOS 13. And I think this is a huge upgrade, because this makes the iPhone and the iPad a lot more computer-like, because now we will finally have a real operating system with a file manager that can have access to external storage. And not only that, you will be able to get to your SMB shares. So for example, me that have a Linux server, I can share my external hard drives from my Linux server and then get to those in iOS 13, the Files app, for example, by using the SMB shares. So these external drives I have on my Linux server will feel like they are mounted on your phone or your iPad, for example. So you can use external storage wireless through your local network when you're home, as you have them connected to your device. It will feel like you have them connected to your device, but you use your local network to get to your files. And I think the SMB support in iOS 13 is the most interesting of all new features, because that will make your phone and your iPad even better when it comes to be a real computer. And as you know, I use my iPhone XS Max as my main computer. I do all things on my phone, and in the future, next year, I will buy a new iPad Pro, so I can use the iPad Pro with an even larger display. So this new features, external storage and SMB support in iOS 13 is very interesting for me. Another great new feature is what Apple calls Quick Path. It's like the SwiftKey keyboard, for example, where you can swipe to type. So you can swipe between the letters and you then make a whole word. So with Quick Path, Apple adds a swipe keyboard finally, and it will be very interesting to see if it will support Swedish, but I don't think so, because QuickType still doesn't support Swedish, and I think that's strange. So why should QuickPath support Swedish? But when I watched the keynote, Apple very fast noted that QuickType will support a lot more languages. So hopefully one of the new languages for QuickType will be Swedish, and eventually then we will also have QuickPath in the future, so we can swipe when typing even in Swedish, so not only English and a few other languages. So QuickPath is a new swipe keyboard from Apple, and that sounds very interesting because I used SwiftKey and Google keyboard a lot on my Android devices. So having a swipe option when typing instead of just quick type or normal type, so that is really great to have in iOS 13, and I'm very excited for that feature. Another really great thing with iOS 13 is that Apple releases a complete new version of the Reminders app. So I am a heavy user of Good Task, a task manager app that is based on Apple's Reminders app. So all the tasks I add in Good Tasks adds to the Apple Reminders app. But if what I have seen about the new Apple Reminders app, it will be so good, so I don't need Good Task anymore. Good Task is a very good app, so I have already bought it and so on, but maybe I can get rid of Good Task as a middle hand and only use Apple Reminders app in iOS 13 because it looks so good. So that will be very interesting to see if I can use Apple Reminders app only using Apple Reminders app instead of Good Task. That will be awesome. And there is a lot of new features in the coming Photos app in iOS 13, a lot of new edit functions and so on in the Photos app, so that will be very interesting to try also. But another feature that not many have mentioned is that the Siri Voices will be a lot better because it will use a more human feel when talking in iOS 13, so it will not be so robotic as if you know what I mean. So it will be more human-like, and I use text-to-speech a lot because when I'm reading ebooks on my iPhone, I read them a lot faster than normal people, around 450-500 words a minute, and that is thanks to text-to-speech. I listen to the ebook at the same time as I read it. So with text-to-speech, reading it aloud for me, I read along the text when reading it for 450 to 500 words a minute. And with a lot better Siri Voices, I can listen to the ebooks more like audiobooks because it will feel very human-like now with the new Siri Voices in iOS 13. So text-to-speech and Siri will sound a lot better in iOS 13, and I really love that. And another feature that is new in iOS 13 is sign in with Apple. And I really like that feature because that is more private and more secure than logging in with Facebook or Google. I have got rid of everything Google, so I don't want to use Google, and I have no Facebook account anymore. So signing with Apple will be something I will really like to use because it's so private and doesn't have any information about you stored anywhere more than on your phone. And with that feature, sign in with Apple, you can also have a temporary email created for you. So you can have that when creating accounts and subscribe to newsletters and so on, so you don't have to use your real email address. And Apple taking care of everything, so you can have a lot of different temporary emails when signing up for things, so you don't reveal your real email address and so on. So sign in with Apple is a really cool new feature in iOS 13, and a lot of other cool new stuffs in iOS 13. For example, Xbox and PlayStation 4 hand control support, so you can connect those to your iPhone and use them to play games on your iPhone and so on. Apple Maps gets a lot better in iOS 13. I already use Apple Maps. I think it's better than Google Maps because I don't want to be tracked by Google. So I use Apple Maps already when navigating in my car and so on. And I think Apple Maps is great in Sweden actually. It uses TomTom Maps from Europe, so it is really great here in Sweden. So Apple Maps I can highly recommend to use already, and in iOS 13 it will be even better. And a lot of other cool stuff, but the most interesting that I want to talk to you about in this video is that waiting for a new operating system version, in this case iOS 13, for your phone is more exciting, more interesting than waiting for a new phone version, phone model nowadays, because an iPhone can last for at least three to 4 years, maybe 5 years until you need to buy a new one. And having that phone as long as for example, a Mac computer. I have a Mac computer back here. It's 7 years old, soon 8 years, and still going strong. So having a phone like that lasts a lot longer than before. Then a new operating system version is a lot more exciting than a new phone. And I think iOS 13 is another step to have a complete new phone when you're installing iOS 13. It will make your phone last a lot longer. Apple is working on iOS, so iOS gets better and better to support older devices, older hardware and so on. So battery life and the CPU and the capacity and all that will be better with iOS 13, so your older devices will last longer. So it will support down to iPhone 6s. iOS 13 will be support devices down to iPhone 6s. And I think that's great, because that means that you can have an iPhone 6s and use iOS 13 on it. And that is what I mean by supporting older devices. So having an iPhone XS Max that I have, I can use that for at least 3 years without problems. And my goal is to use my iPhone XS Max for 3 years, maybe only 2 years, we will see next year. But because the rumor says that iPhone in 2020 will be extremely good. But we will see. Maybe I buy an iPad Pro next year instead of a new iPhone, because I don't need phone features actually in a phone. I need to have a large display. That's why I bought iPhone XS Max, because it's the largest phone I have owned actually. So when next year, if my phone still works and so on, I can have that to be connected to and so on. I can use an iPad Pro to work on instead. If I buy the iPad Pro, the 11-inch iPad Pro, then I can use that instead to edit videos, record videos and blogging on and so on, writing and everything I do on the iPad Pro instead. So maybe next year I won't buy a new iPhone and still have my iPhone XS Max, because iOS 13 makes it so good, so it will last at least 1 year still without problem. and then use an iPad Pro next year instead. I buy a new iPad Pro maybe next year instead of the iPhone. iOS makes a phone last longer nowadays. So waiting for iOS 13 in a few months, I think September, we will have iOS 13, and that will make all phones as new again. It will feel like a new phone model. Trust me, I know that. And iOS 13 will support down to iPhone 6s, as I said. So all phones down to iPhone 6s will feel like a new phone again with iOS 13. So that's what I mean by waiting for a new operating system version is very exciting nowadays. Okay, bye.